Hello internet users and welcome back to another video. If you know me, you'll know that I have a strange fascination with fan games, and on this channel I've taken a look at all kinds of them. With no set rules to these passion projects, you just never know what to expect. You can have Mario jumping around the colorful land of the Mushroom Kingdom in one game, and in another, watch him try to survive the gruesome horrors of a cursed mansion. Unfortunately though, when it comes to Sonic the Hedgehog, there just aren't too many amazing and well-known fan games out there. And in my opinion, the ones that usually do get the spotlight aren't really that great. So with that in mind, today we're going to be taking a look at a fan game that I think deserves a lot more attention as it continues to show promise. Sonic vs. Darkness. Sonic vs. Darkness is a game that offers an interesting take on the gameplay of 2D Sonic, combining elements of Sonic Rush and from some of the more modern titles like Sonic Unleashed. And by that, I don't mean the werehog stuff, so don't worry. The gameplay works like this. Playing as either Sonic or Shadow, you need to reach the end of each stage while trying to go as fast as possible, defeating enemies and collecting rings along the way. At the end of each zone, you'll also have to fight a boss before you can move on. Now all of that sounds fairly standard and what you'd expect for Sonic the Hedgehog. But what makes this particular fan game stand out so much to me is how all of the little things come together to enhance the experience. I'm sure that just from looking at the footage here, you can tell that there is quite a bit of effort put into this. And that shouldn't be too surprising, as this game comes to us from Default First, the maker of Chow Resort Island. So that should be a pretty good indication of how much polish Sonic vs. Darkness has. It's also worth mentioning that this is actually intended to be a remake of a game made by Default First back in 2011. So for this video, I want to cover what Sonic vs. Darkness has to offer in its current state, what appears to be planned for the future, and what I personally think I'd like to see from it. And if we're going to be talking about attention to detail, we'll start with the game's hub area. The rest base is the place your character can go to between levels. Depending on what character you're playing as, there will either be Tails or Rouge here that you can speak with. As of the version I'm playing right now, there isn't any story-related dialogue yet, and these characters are mainly just here to give you the basic rundown of what you can do at the rest base. To the left, there is an item shop. However, there isn't anything you can buy right now aside from extra lives, which is kind of a shame because this menu has some really nice music, along with the rest base itself. I wish that there was more of a reason to hang around here, but we'll see how that goes in the future. For now, let's get right into the meat of the game. Going to the right, you can select a stage. Something you can see right away is that it shows your character running off as the game transitions. I think that's a really nice touch here. I don't think you need me to tell you that visually this game looks great. The levels are colorful, designed very well, and have a good amount of variety all throughout them. This isn't just a single background with a few loops and rings to run through. A lot of care clearly went into making these feel like an authentic stage we'd expect from a good Sonic game. Something else that I'm also happy to say is that Sonic and Shadow both play and control very well. In the case of most fan games, one of the biggest problems that often stands out is when a character feels very weird and awkward to control, especially when the fan game is attempting to emulate gameplay that many people are already very familiar with. Sure, it might be easy to make Mario jump, but making him jump like Mario is something that's a lot harder to accomplish. It's a bit hard to put into words, but if you've ever played a fan game before, I'm sure that you understand exactly what I mean. And it's not something I'd say is exclusive to platformers either. By the way, if you were wondering, both Sonic and Shadow play exactly the same. After spending quite a while switching between the two, I couldn't find any difference, so just pick whoever you like best. The characters aside, though, when talking about the gameplay itself, what makes Sonic vs. Darkness different from other 2D Sonic games is how it incorporates the boost gameplay from some of the modern 3D games. And I'm just gonna go ahead and say this right now, I've never actually played any of those games that have this gimmick, nor do I have any interest in doing so. But one thing that I am aware of is that people are pretty divided on whether or not they think it's good. Now this might seem hypocritical for me to say as a YouTuber, but I can't really comment on games that I haven't played, so I can only really give my impressions on how it works here in Sonic vs. Darkness. So for this game, what you have to do is hold down the boost button to make your character go even faster, while also smashing through any enemies that get in your way and collecting rings to help keep the meter filled. This makes gameplay very, very fast-paced, which is a part of the reason that people dislike this idea, as it can make things feel very trial and error with how little time you have to react to what's ahead of you. Honestly though, that's how I've always felt about the older games anyway. Even without a boost system, there's always just been obstacles that bring you to an abrupt stop because you didn't see them coming, so it doesn't make much of a difference to me here. In my personal opinion, when it comes to the Sonic the Hedgehog series, I've always felt that playing a stage for the first time is where I have the least fun. For me, the games have always been at their strongest when they challenge you to not only complete a stage, but to master it. So I think that having fast, fun gameplay, combined with reasonably sized stages and an incentive to play them over and over is what I want most from a Sonic game. And I really think that Sonic vs. Darkness is on the right track to delivering that experience. Since the first time I played it, I found myself wanting to see everything it had to offer. Currently, there is only 2 playable zones, each with 2 acts, and a boss fight. But even so, I ended up replaying those same few stages over and over, trying for a better rank, simply because of how much fun it was. When it came to the boss fights, I also found them to be fun and decently challenging. The Egg Juggler has you trying to maintain a certain amount of speed while you try to launch its bombs back at it with a homing attack. And the Nightmare Kraken has you dodging attacks while waiting for an opening on its one tentacle that isn't covered with spikes. As the first 2 bosses, I felt like they offered some good variety between the game's action stages. For me, I'd say that this little demo had me a lot more hooked than the full release of Sonic Mania did. Not to say that Sonic Mania isn't a good game or anything, but I just really wasn't into it as much as everyone else was. I ended up just putting it down and haven't gotten back around to it yet. Next, I really want to talk about how well this game handles sound design. Like I mentioned earlier, this game has some good music, but saying just that is a pretty big understatement. Every track in this game is really, really good, and each of them serve their purpose and all fit together very well. The rest area has very calm and soothing music for you to listen to, the item shop has a nice jazzy theme, and right from the get-go, the title menu has this really nice, mysterious, and relaxing feel to it. I also think that the music for the stages themselves are a perfect fit for all of the fast-paced action that's going on. In fact, I'd say that the music is a big part of the reason I wanted to replay the same parts over and over. The developer has actually uploaded all of this game's music onto a YouTube channel, and has a SoundCloud as well, so I'd highly recommend giving everything there a listen. This even includes tracks for stages in other parts of the game that aren't even there yet. And this is where I want to talk about the original game for a moment. That version actually used music taken directly from a few different other games, and in the case of this remake, most of the tracks here are remixes of the ones used in the old game. And as was the case with Chow Resort Island, there is also some original music here too, such as the item shop theme for example. However, to comment on the gameplay of the original Sonic vs. Darkness, I have to say that I just couldn't get into it. It's very slow, the stages are a lot smaller and simplified, and it felt a bit clunky. I didn't want to play it for very long. Another thing that's kind of weird is how in each stage, this ghostly figure chases and attacks you as you play, which is really annoying. I'm pretty sure that this thing is supposed to be Darkness, as in, the thing mentioned in the title that Sonic is supposed to be fighting. There's no sign of this guy anywhere in the current game, but once he is implemented, I hope it's mainly as a part of the story, or even as a boss fight or two, because having him chase you around while you play feels pretty unnecessary. The difference between the 2011 game and the current one is night and day. It's to the point where I find it strange that one is supposed to be considered a remake of the other. I will say though, even though I don't really like the original, it's certainly a good effort for someone's first fan game. I definitely can't call it awful, and Default First has definitely come a long way since then. Now finally, I want to mention something about the developer's other fan game, Chow Resort Island. If you've seen my video on that game, then you'll know that one of the problems I had with it is that it gets very repetitive very quickly, and it doesn't offer a whole lot for you to do or work towards. Well, at the time of making this video, the next version of Sonic vs. Darkness's demo is going to be combining the two games for what looks to be a really interesting experience. Like in the two Sonic Adventure games, you'll be able to visit the resort between levels and raise Chow. This has apparently been the developer's intention for a long while now, and a lot of people tried to use this to argue my criticisms of Chow Resort, but like I said in that video, it was released as a completed standalone game, so I reviewed it as a standalone game. That being said, I think that combining the two will fix a lot of the issues I had with Chow Resort, so I'm looking forward to see how well that plays out. But anyways, going back to the main game, there are some other things that I'm curious about for the future. Like I said, there currently isn't anything you can buy from the shop aside from extra lives, but if you pause at the rest base, you can open a skills menu, showing that we're likely going to be able to buy and equip a few of these. Right now, though, all you can do is swap out homing attack for double jump, so we'll just have to wait and see what kind of skills will be added. If there was one major thing that I'd want to see change, though, it's the game's time attack mode. For a game that encourages you to go fast, I think that time attack is a great opportunity to give the game's stages more replay value. However, currently all this mode does is save a few of your personal best times when you play it, which is something that the main game already does anyway, by saving and displaying your best time when you finish a stage. Time attack doesn't even give you a rank when you beat a stage either, so there just isn't much reason to play it. I'm not going to sit and argue for what I think the mode should be, but right now it's a pretty redundant and unnecessary feature. But the game is still a demo, so for all I know, it could just be an afterthought that will be greatly improved upon later. And that's pretty much all I have to say about Sonic vs. Darkness. I think it's a really promising fan game that offers a lot of fun for any Sonic fan. Updates have been rather slow on it, but that's to be expected from all of the better fan games, especially when it's mostly being worked on by one person. However long it takes though, I definitely recommend keeping an eye on it as it continues to grow. My name is Pikasprey, and thanks for watching.